The Alphabet of Chaos, Al-Kindi, and the First Decipherers of Knowledge. If you can crack a code today, if you can reveal the hidden information within a message, or if you can extract an order from complex numbers, its roots might be older than you think. And perhaps it all started with a very ordinary question. How is that which is hidden brought to the surface? This question seems to belong to cybersecurity or advanced technology today, but in reality, it was spoken centuries ago. And the man who asked this question was neither a commander nor a vizier. He was simply a human who thought about subtle details. Al-Kindi, 9th century, Baghdad. 1. The heart of the city and the gravity of knowledge. It would be a mistake to think of this place as just a city, because Baghdad at that time was like an event horizon. It was a center of attraction. Knowledge from all four corners of the world converged here, but this convergence did not happen on its own. Baghdad was hosting the largest open library project human history had ever seen. Manuscripts of Greek philosophers arrived in the form of papyrus sheets. The number systems of Indian mathematicians containing the zero were carried in the bags of merchants. The high administrative discipline of the Persians encountered the paper technology of the Chinese. Ideas from different civilizations were all being debated here on the banks of the Tigris. But there was a problem. There was information, but there was no order at all. There were ideas, but there was no operating system to bring them together. It was like throwing millions of books of various styles randomly onto the shelf of a library. If you cannot find what you are looking for, that knowledge never existed. And this is a larger problem than what is seen or thought, because knowledge alone means nothing. If you cannot systematize it, it is just noise. 2. By Al-Hikmah, the alchemy chambers of knowledge. This is exactly where the Bait al-Hikmah, House of Wisdom, enters our focus. Most people think of this place as just a quiet library with old shelves, but in reality, it was a different place. A production center, a system machine. Knowledge was not merely stored here, it was worked upon like a raw material. While texts were being translated, the language was not changed easily. The logical errors within that language were extracted. It was debated, criticized, destroyed, and rebuilt. In other words, knowledge was revealed anew here, and at the very center of this process, a man whose mind worked like a prism began to rise to the summit. Al-Kindi. In Kindi's world, knowledge was mixed, and this clutter created a trust issue. An Aristotelian text stated one thing, an Indian astronomical tablet stated another, and no one had a filter to determine which data was the fundamental truth. This situation should feel familiar to you. Today, we call this information chaos. The internet is an ocean of data, but which is authentic? Kindi diagnosed this problem 1,000 years ago, and he uttered that promising sentence: the truth must be accepted no matter where it comes from. This is not just a pleasant discourse on tolerance. This is the universal visa of science. It is an effort to turn truth into an object independent of nationality and religion. But this idea is always troublesome, because systems want control. Those who hold power intend to be the owners of reality as well. Kindi, however, argued that reality is no one's property. It is simply a structure waiting to be found. 3. The birth of cryptography, understanding patterns. But what truly turned Kindi into a genius who changed the course of history was his way of approaching problems, especially codes. In that era, a large part of diplomacy, war, and trade relied on secret messages. Everyone encrypted their messages in some way, shifted letters, or used symbols. Everyone claimed their code was unbreakable, because only they knew the solution. But Kindi thought of something different. He asked, if a message is written in a language, can you ever truly ignore that language? The answer was, of course, no. You could hide the language, but you could not ignore its soul, its statistics. Kindi created the method of frequency analysis for the first time in history. This was the first data analysis system in human history. The logic was extremely ordinary, but the impact was striking. In every language, some letters are used more than others. For example, in Arabic, the letters alif and lam appear constantly. No matter how much you change the shape of the letters in an encrypted text, the most repetitive character is actually the most used letter of that language. Discover the tracks, find the character that occurs most, find the second, and suddenly a word begins to form within the chaos. Then a sentence. And finally, that secret command that someone called never understandable stands revealed in broad daylight. This was not only an intelligent success, this was a document proving that the universe has a language. Kindi was saying nothing that appears random is truly random. This is the foundation of how Google ranks search results today, how Amazon predicts what you will buy, and how AI recognizes your voice. If you collect data on a large enough scale, no hidden pattern can remain concealed. 4. The numerical aspect of the universe. For Kindi, this search for patterns was not limited to letters on paper. He thought of everything as a data set. Take music, for example. For most people, music is an intensity of emotion, but for Kindi, music was a mathematical division of vibrations in the air. He was of the mind that by touching the strings of his oud, he was actually producing frequencies. He believed that sounds were formed according to specific ratios, rhythms, and notes. If there is harmony, mathematics must certainly exist there. If there is mathematics, there is an order. And if there is a rule, you can create more magnificent music by solving that rule. This perspective also jumped into the field of medicine. At that time, medicine consisted of a bit of herbal knowledge and a lot of coincidence. Kindi asked, how do we measure the strength of a medicine? He tried to pour the dosages of ingredients into a mathematical scale. He attempted to calculate degrees of heat and cold, in the medical terms of that era, with a geometric rise. This was the first step toward the mathematization of pharmacology, because Kindi knew you cannot truly know what you cannot measure. The milligram calculations performed in modern laboratories today are a continuation of Kindi's desire for measurement in the 9th century. 5. The adventure of light, optics, and consciousness. Kindi did not just question secret writings or medicines, he also questioned the gaze of the gaze. How did people see? There was a thought remaining from ancient Greece: light emits from the eyes and hits objects. Kindi doubted this. He deeply examined that light travels linearly, reflects, and refracts. His work, titled De Aspectibus, would also influence names like Roger Bacon in Europe centuries later. By trying to find the physics of light, Kindi was actually trying to understand how reality comes to us. Seeing is the process of the eye breaking the lock of the data from the external world. In other words, we are essentially cracking a code every moment we see the world. 6. The Great Dissolution and the Journey of Knowledge. However, Kindi's story is not just a success novel, it is also an admonition. Knowledge systems survive not only through discovery, but also through a free ecosystem that allows that discovery to continue. Toward the end of his life, Kindi had to struggle with a changing political climate and peak dogmatism. Questioning minds are always a problem for those whose answers have become ordinary. With Kindi's death, things began to transform slowly in Baghdad. Curiosity was replaced by obedience and analysis by rote memorization. When people stop asking questions, knowledge turns into just a household item. Repetitive systems, just like static letters in frequency analysis, become predictable and, as a result, helpless and vulnerable. 7. Kindi, in today's context, finding order in digital chaos. Now, stop and look at today. We are in a world where trillions of bits of data are processed per second. Social media algorithms analyze us better than we do ourselves. Artificial intelligence talks to us by learning the patterns within massive piles of text. In fact, we all continue our lives within that universe of frequency analysis that Kindi created. Kindi left us this legacy. The world may appear complex, but it is not incomprehensible. Everything that is hidden has a solution, and that solution is usually within the most obvious, most repetitive, and simplest looking things right before our eyes. What is the code in your life? That complex problem you cannot solve might just be waiting for a true statistical perspective. Perhaps that sequence of events you call random is actually screaming its own frequency. Just as Kindi did in Baghdad 1,000 years ago. Stop, analyze, and ask, where is the pattern? Because once you know the pattern, the code is cracked. And once the code is cracked, the world is no longer the same. Knowledge is power, yes, but to use knowledge is to control that power. Kindi gave us the solution to this control. Now the question is, which door will you open with this key in your hand? To support us, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Let's continue this journey together.